Oh, yes, that was, you can see.
Okay. Oh. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo, Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat, Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri, Gurave Namaha, Akhandamandalakaram, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaste Sharada Devi, Kashmira Puravasini, Vidyadanam Karishyami, Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Om Shri Sadgurudevaya Namaha. Harihi Om. All right, so let's begin from where we were yesterday. Even after saving the snapshots, it's not saving the React portion. Okay, but any questions with respect to React so far?
No, G.
Okay. Now map, filter and reduce. We will cover one more concept of async. But basically we are covering map, filter and reduce right now. So const a equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Const square equal to a function which returns n square for a given number. Okay, it takes in a number and returns the square of the number. Return. Okay. Now, if I say const b equal to a dot map square, I get 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. Now, in the same way as square, okay, I want to define another function is odd. Which returns whether a number is odd or not. If the number is divisible by 2, it is returning true actually. So I shouldn't say not equal to 0. If the remainder of a number divided by 2 is not equal to 0, that means it is something, an odd number. Okay, and if it is divisible by 2, it is an even number. It's not divisible by 2, odd number, divisible by 2, even number. Okay, now I say const C equal to a dot filter is odd. What should I expect in C?
An array of only odd numbers.
Yes. So 1, 3, 5. Okay.
Yes, जी.
Filtering is used to filter a collection given a condition. Okay. Given a conditional function, it can filter some array or collection. Map is used to transform. Filter is used to filter. Let's say I have an array of students. Name Fu. Okay. Age 10. Gender M. Bar. Age 11. Gender F. Bars. Age 12. Gender M. Okay. Now I say const male students equal to student dot filter. Now the function I want to define is male. Okay. Given a student, return student dot gender equal to M. Okay. And I say is male here. What should I get here? It is an array of students who are male. So this,
Yeah.
okay. Not just the values of their names, okay. I'll get the entire array. Okay. But I will not get this value in the array. Okay. So whenever I want to filter out some things from the list, I can use filter. It can be a complex condition as well, okay? Teenage male. Return if the gender is M and age greater than 12. Okay, if I say that, then this will only include a list of students who are male and above 12. Okay. So this can have multiple kind of conditions. You can do any number of things. What it has to return is true or false. For a given entity, it has to return whether you want to include it or exclude it. If you return true, then it will be included. If you return false, then it will be excluded. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
जी.
Yes, sir.
Okay, one more. Marks 30. Marks 70. Marks 60. Okay. Now I can say const. How should I write function for filtering out the students who have distinction?
student, return student dot marks
Hmm.
in condition equal to, for distinction, it should be greater than student dot marks greater than
Greater than 70.
70. Yeah.
Okay, or percentage, whatever is the field we define.
Huh.
Now, if I use this, then I'll get an array of students who have distinction. Clear? See how JavaScript is making all these things so easy for us to understand and process. Okay, create lists of this kind of structures, process those based on our requirement. Okay, it's a very powerful combination. Creating structures and processing those is very powerful combination in JavaScript. It allows very easy and powerful transformations to the data. Doing this in other languages, if you have worked with Java and all, you will have to do a lot of things to be able to do this kind of processing. Okay, in JavaScript, it is very easily possible. Okay. So, filter is clear, right?
Yes, G.
Now the last one is called reduce. Okay. Now let us say you want a total of all the students' marks whose age is above 11. What will you do? Let's use reduce for that. Okay.
What's the difference, Double G, between reduce and filter? Filter also.
Filter is filtering out the content, filtering out the elements of the array based on a certain condition. Here,
Yeah.
what I want is sum the marks of students who are above 11.
Reduce with respect to some condition, right? Reduce the code or
Yeah. So reduce the entire array to a single value.
okay, reducing the array.
Yeah. Okay, map was transform the array. It is still giving you back an array. Filter is filter out the elements of the array. Here we are saying reduce the entire array to a single value. Okay. Now I will write the syntax here. Don't worry too much about the syntax portion. Okay. But the way reduce function works is like this. It takes an initial value. Okay. Initial value here is 0 for the sum. Okay. And the function that we are supposed to pass age mark reducer equal to, it takes in 3 variables, result and student. Index right now, let's not worry about that. Result and student, let's do about that. Okay. So what we are supposed to do in age mark reducer is that if student dot age greater than or equal to 11, okay, result equal to result plus student dot marks. And at the end of the function, return result. Okay. Like in the function, we are returning, for filter functions and map functions, we are returning some value. Here also, we are returning some value. Now I'll say age mark reducer here. So my reducer function and the start value for this. Okay, start value for my result. So what it will do, it will call age mark reducer for all three elements. Okay, first it calls with this one. Okay, student is referring to this one and result has what? 0. All right. Now it says if student dot age equal to greater than equal to 11, add the marks of the student to the result and return the result. Okay. For next iteration, it will come here. Now, first of all, did this happen here based on what we are evaluating? Did this if condition go through?
No. So it is 0 only.
It is 0 because age is not greater than 11. So it is still referring to 0. Now second student comes into picture. Okay. Here the age is 11. So this if condition becomes true. Now it says result equal to result plus student dot marks. How many are the marks?
70.
70. So result becomes 70. Okay. And it returns. So now again next student comes into picture. Now the value of result is 70 for that student. Okay. And student is referring to this one. It again checks if the age is greater than 11. Okay. Is it greater than 11?
Yes.
Okay. So it says result equal to result plus. I should use a different term here. Let me not use result because it is confusing. I should say total, because result is the parameter I am receiving and total is something that we want to total equal to result plus student dot marks. Okay, so that makes it more clear that we are adding total to result to the total. Okay, so now total becomes how much?
130.
Result has 70. We are adding 30 here, 60 here. So it becomes 130. It returns the total. Okay. So finally, this gets 130. So you can look at it as similar to filter and map, in which we go through individual array elements. Okay. But you can store the output of the processing in a single variable. It has reduced the entire array to a single kind of value. Okay. This is also very much helpful. This is extremely helpful if we want to selectively do some calculation on the entire array. Otherwise, you can still do that without reduce. Okay, it's not that you cannot do that without reduce. Then what you'll have to do first, you'll have to filter the array based on the age. So you can say that filter the array for all the students who are greater than or equal to 11. Okay, then you'll have to again go through that array and manually do a total of all their marks. Okay, 2 times you have to go through the entire array or at least, one time through the entire array and second time through the filtered array to just do the total. But filter, this reduce operation allows you to do this kind of reduction in one go. While you are going through the array, you are also building your final output. It is a very complicated subject, very complicated concept. So don't get, this thing. It will be overwhelming initially to understand this, but it's a very powerful concept as well. And the ease with which JavaScript allows you to do this is simply not possible in other languages. Okay. Clear? Let's say I want to make a average of all the students' marks. Okay. Who have passed. Then what I will do?
One more condition saying if the marks is more than 35, then it will do the.
Clear? So this way I'm making at least an addition of all the students' marks. I have to figure out a way of averaging them as well. Okay.
Last में आ जाओ ना. Last में आ जाओ 3:30.
With each student I'm progressing, I have to make an average of both of those. Okay. So total is actually
Can't we do the average in the end? After
Yeah.
we have got the marks, the total.
Or yeah, you're right. We can do the total here and return total by 2. Okay. So at each iteration, it is averaging out the student marks.
No, Davaji, I was saying, if we know, do we know how many elements are there in the array? Or is there a way
For
to?
that, we need to filter out. So we can, that also can be done.
Okay, okay, that
That
will work.
That is also a possibility. There are, from a JavaScript perspective, there is a better way of doing that. Okay, for the sake of simplicity, I want to not go too deep into that. Otherwise, what I can do is I can actually build an object here. Rather than this being a value, I start with an empty object. Okay. So now result refers to an object. And I can say that return an object which has both total and student count equal to result dot student count plus 1. So actually, let me build this return object inside rather than outside. Let new result equal to result. Okay. Now here I can say that if student dot marks equal to 35 greater than or equal to 35, then what I am saying, new result dot total equal to result dot total plus student dot marks. Okay. And new result dot student count equal to result dot student count plus 1 and return new result. Okay. Let me make it further more readable. This value is total 0, student count 0. So this is an extreme example of the kind of processing I can do with this kind of arrays. But you know, at the end, what I will get here is an object like this. Okay. So wait. Let me rename this. Average object. Average. Okay. So what I will get in here is total is, say, everybody who has passed, total is 130. And student count is 2. So I created another JavaScript object. See, I'm still reducing the value to one thing only. Out of multiple instances of things in the array, multiple elements of the array, I am still reducing it to a single object. But the shape of this object is like this. Total 130. Let me even make it more better. Total marks 130. Okay. And yeah, student count is 2. So what I got back is total marks of all the students who are passing, and how many students are there in that list, or how many students are passing. Was this readable, or did you see what I did here? This is the initial value or initial object which I want. Okay. This shape of data I want from this reduction. What is the shape? Total marks and student count. Currently, how much is the total marks in this object? 0. How much is the student count? 0. Now, what I'm doing, I'm passing this initial object here as the starting value for reduction. Okay. And I am reducing the students based on this function. Now, what does it say? It receives the result, this object as a result. Okay, out of that, it creates a new result. Okay. Now, here what I am saying,
When can we remove it?
here I am saying new result dot total marks equal to add the marks in the old result. New result dot student count equal to 1 more than the earlier student count, and return the new result. So for each student that is passing, it will add the marks here and increment this count by 1. Clear? See how I can do very complicated processing of this kind of lists by the reduce operation. If you were to do this manually by running a for loop or doing things like that, it will be very difficult. Okay. And this offers a very powerful and simple way of doing things. And this filter is also useful for displaying things selectively in React. So for example, const offerings is a component which takes in offerings array. And we want to render an offerings UI out of this. So we are saying UL. Okay. Now what I can do, let's say this is the shape of my offerings. Okay. Title offering 1. Description. Okay. And let's say I have another field here which says that offering type. Okay. Now let me create another entry here. Offering 2 bar. Offering 3 4. All right. So there are 3 offerings with different types. Okay. And I am running this offerings function react.render. Offerings is the component and I'm passing this offering array. So here I say that const offering list items equal to offerings dot map. Okay. So here we need to do two things. Const filtered offerings equal to return so what does this do? What filtering does this do?
It will return only the offering type, which is foo, the type which is foo.
So this will only return this and this offering. Filtered offerings has the first and third offering. It is going to skip the second offering. Okay. Now I am saying map the filtered offerings where an offering is transformed into li. Within the li, you have say h4 offering dot title h4 and p offering dot description. Okay. So this is what it returns. What does it do? It creates a list item out of an offering. Okay. And here I am saying offering list items. So what did we essentially do here?
We listed the items.
We listed the items which are of the type foo.
Foo.
Okay. We filtered out the bar one. We did not take it inside. Okay. 1 and 3 are the ones that are printed out. Any questions with respect to filter and map?
No, Dhavalji. It's clear.
Okay, it's used for both UI purposes as well as data processing purposes. Sometimes you would want to process the data before printing it out. Sometimes you would want to generate UI out of your collection. Clear? Okay. Now see, in the React world, let me put async later. I think async is the last thing we will do. And that's the end of our class now. In React world, this offerings is, in function world, this is called arguments, right? In the world of function, this is called arguments. In the world of React, we call them properties or props. Properties or props. And one thing to know is that if the props change, then the UI will change. If the props change, then React will update the UI. That means if I change this to, I say that offerings 1 dot offering type equal to foo. What will happen with this offerings output?
It will show the second element. It will show.
It will show all three now. Okay. Because all of them are foo. Okay. That is the beauty of React. You don't have to worry about updating the UI once you update your props. Okay. If you update your props, you don't have to worry about updating the UI. Okay. If offerings is being supplied to the offerings component, okay, this is like, let me show you the real way we would have done this in the UI. So in some other component or inside body, we would have done like h2, sorry, section class equal to offerings section. In fact, this should be also there within the offerings itself. So this would return a section like this. Okay. But let's say in my HTML that I have going on, I have div offerings introduction about testimonials. Okay. And here I am supplying the array offerings. This is the offerings array that I am supplying here. This is the property it is accepting. Okay. When I'm defining this as an argument here in this way, it is going to accept it as a property. Okay. If I say offering list here, then I have to supply it as offering list. Okay. Then this will change to offering list. So this is going to map to my arguments in React. Now, whenever this changes in the UI, this data changes, this component will automatically update the UI. We don't have to worry about updating the UI. That is the beauty of React. That's why it is called React. The moment the props change is the moment the offerings output will change. Clear? So props are like arguments. And whatever name I give here for the prop is the name it will be using it here in the UI. Clear?
Yes, Ji.
Yes, sir.
Vaishali? So any questions here?
No, Ji.
Okay. In the same way, there is something called state. Okay. So sometimes what you will have to do is also maintain something like props internally. Okay. And you want to ensure that whenever that changes, you also want to update the UI. Okay. So there can be normal variables here as well. Const foo equal to bar. This is a normal variable. Okay. If I put, say, foo here, the UI output will be like section class equal to offerings, section, then the ULLI list, and it will say bar. Okay, because the variable foo refers to bar. But if I say here that foo equal to bars, then this will probably not update and change it to bars immediately. There is no guarantee that this will be immediately changeable. Although initially the value was reflecting, on each changes it may or may not reflect. Okay. Because React only guarantees the reaction on two things. One is the props or properties, and one is the state. Okay. Now, how I could use state? I need to say that const count equal to useState useState of 0. And I need to say count. Now again, don't go into the syntax here, and I don't want to even go in the details of this much. But now this is a state variable. Okay, and if I refer to the count anywhere within the UI, React will ensure that whenever the count is updated, the UI changes. Currently, the value of count is 0. So the UI will refer to count as 0. Okay. If I within anywhere the React function say set count 5. Okay. Set count is going to update the count state to 5. So it will refer to 5. Set count of 15. This will change to 15. Okay. So this is called a state variable. Like you have props, you have state. What is the use of state? Why there is a state variable to begin with? Why would you want to use a state variable versus a normal variable? Okay. State variables are typically the variables that you would use to hold any data that keeps on changing. Okay. Any data that keeps on changing. What is some data that keeps on changing in your UI? Let us say I am showing you the current student information, and I'm having two arrows in the UI. If I click on the arrow, it changes the current student. So I would have student set current student, and I will use the student information here. Okay. So if I say set current student to a new value, and whatever student information I am showing here, what will happen?
Based on the person's click, whichever student is there, it keeps getting updated, and that student will be shown. The new
Yes.
student will be shown.
Based on the current information in this variable, it will be shown. It is very good for two things. Okay. One is server side loaded data. Okay. You would typically load some data from server side, then it is a good idea to store it in the state. Because every time you will call server, every time you will have some new information, then where you would want to save it? State. And state is local to the component. It is not something that the component is receiving from outside. It is local to the component. Like, you have your local variables within the function. State is something that is local to the component. So you load some server side data and you want to show it in the UI. You can pass your state as a prop to another component from here. So let's say I want to say that show student or student profile So what did I just do here? I loaded some server side data from this component, and there is a state going on for that server side data, and I'm passing it on to the child component. It is much like calling a function here called student profile with information student. So every time this student updates, it is going to update this. Does this make sense?
Yes, sir.
When the props update for this component, all these things will change. This entire component will render again. Okay. When the state changes for this component, again it will do the same thing. All these things will render again. Okay. And that will ensure that if I load a different student's profile, then my UI will show a different data in the student profile. Okay. For things that are, coming from the top, or for things that are local and don't need to be dynamic and loaded from the server, for that you have props. For side effects, okay, or changing data, you have state. Side effects, you remember side effects?
Yes, Dhavalji.
or impure functions, where even if the function is the same and this is the same, every time you load the function, execute the function, the output can be different. Okay, that is because your server side data, the function does not know whether it is going to be the same or not. So side effect related things or server side related data things can be stored in state. Clear?
Yeah, can you explain once again side effects thing?
So sum of A and B is a pure function. Why? Every time you say sum of
Same
1
result.
and 2, it gives 3.
Yes.
Okay. Versus show student info of say Tawal. This is actually not a pure function. It has side effects. Why? If this is loading the data from server, it is not guaranteed that every time this data will be the same. Maybe my marks have changed. Maybe my age has changed. Maybe my grade has changed. Okay. So this is possibly a function with side effect. Or something like get current date. It is relying on some data which is outside the scope of this function. Okay, for pure functions, the data is purely within the scope of the functions. Okay, that means every time the same data, same output. But for side effects, you are also depending on something which is not based on simply the arguments. Okay, then that means that every time the output can be different. Okay, but this is how we do things with dynamic data, which is loaded outside from the function. Every time I want to load a student data from server, so I will create a side effect like this. Okay, so all these are technical terms, but don't worry about this. So this is called a side effect. Okay, here I will say load server data using APIs, and I will say set student for that data. Okay, so now this is a side effect for this function with respect to React, and it says that every time this function loads, I can load some student data from the server and set the state here. Now this will always ensure that once the state changes from wherever the function, it will also update the student profile. Let's say I have a button called next. Click equal to, I will say, load next student. Okay, I will write the code so that it loads the next student. Okay, so what it will do, it will all again call the server for the next student details, and it will say set student of that details. Does this make sense? Any questions with respect to props and state?
No, Dhaval. Clear.
See, props and state are very important concepts. Okay, we are not worried too much about this implementation and syntax and all, but props and state we are very much interested in. Okay, what are going to be the props for this function? That means what is it that this function needs in order to show some UI, and what is the state that this function needs in order to work. Okay, this is not so evident right now. As we do more and more React exercises, it will start becoming evident. But we would always want to define 3 things for the component, okay, or the function. Name of the function or component, the props it needs to function, and state it will hold. Okay, much like this mathemagic. Okay, we are saying we will do a function like mathemagic. Now this mathemagic function needs 2 variables to work with. Okay, the scope of the problem is that it needs 2 variables to work with. Okay, and there are some other variables within it which will store some local values that will be used for final output. Okay, so state and props is the concept very much important, not because you will be implementing it all the time, but because we will be using them for our discussions even before we create a component. Okay, if you go here and check our docs, say for example, student flow UI, student made UI flow. See, this is the name of the component. This is the state it will hold. Okay, we are defining which API will be called to get this state. Okay, and what will be the response of the API. I actually just wanted to do the entire React HTML, CSS, JavaScript exercise so that we are able to discuss this as a team. Clear? We are not actually interested in this code as far as the implementation is concerned, but we as a team to collaborate very much need to know what are the components of the system, what is it that it is going to have as a state, what is it that it is going to receive as props, and what are the APIs it will use. Okay. For the subjects function to work, what does it need? For the subjects component to work, okay, our if you see our student mate, okay, okay. So for our subjects component to work correctly, can it load subjects just on its own? Does it know which subjects to load?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
it can only get topics for a given student, right? And a given subject ID. So what are the props here? Student ID and
Subject.
subject ID. Subjects component cannot function without a student ID and a subject ID. For it to work correctly, we need to pass the student ID from the top. Okay, sorry, subjects function component does not have a subject ID. Topics need a subject ID. Okay, subjects will load subjects based on a student ID, which currently we have fixed actually. But based on whatever subject the student selects in subjects component, it will pass that subject ID to the topics component. Okay. And topics component will work with a student ID and a subject ID. Now you see that in the API, it needs both. Okay. And based on that, it gets a list of topics which we will store in the state of topics. Based on that, it is rendering a topic list. So every time there is a topic update, it's a new fetch from the server. There is a new topic list that it works with. This is all that there is to it. Okay. We don't want to go too deep into the coding part, but the breakdown of components, what are the state, what are the props is what we are very much interested in. Clear? We'll cover more of this tomorrow. Okay. I have to go and pick up Sakshi today.
Okay, Dhavalji.
Okay, Dhavalji.
Okay.
Raji.
Okay. Let's close for today.
Okay.
Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrutam Gamaya. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tatsat Shri Gurupyo Namaha Harihi Om. Okay, Hari Om.